We finally have an answer as to where Vladimir Tarasenko will be playing hockey next season, and it is not in Raleigh. And it was reported what their offer was to Tarasenko, and it was not what we expected. We'll be talking about that as well as where the Hurricanes go from here in this episode of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, Caniacs. I'm your host, Jared Ellis, and you're listening to Locked On Hurricanes on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Hurricanes your first listen of this Saturday afternoon. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Andrew Schnittker. How are you doing on this lovely Saturday, Andrew?
I'm doing great. I've fueled up with some Eastern North Carolina barbecue and fried chicken for lunch, so I'm ready to go.
And I have my Baja Blast here with me too. So I feel you on that. I am ready to go. Just like Vladimir Tarasenko.
Have you tried the passion fruit flavor?
Not yet. I'm going to get a bottle of it later on today when I have to go to the store. But as we said, you have Vladimir Tarasenko. He is having a Baja Blast up there in Ottawa. That is where he decided to sign, and he signed a 1-year, $5 million deal with the Senators. And this really doesn't come as a surprise that he didn't sign with the Hurricanes, especially after what the reported deal was that was offered to him. It was a 1-year, $4 million deal. Was reported by Andy Strickland, if I'm not mistaken. There
said it was less than $4 million. I think
it was less than $4 million. Wow, yeah, that is definitely not what we were expecting them to be offering. We're definitely expecting it to be $5 million plus of what the Hurricanes would be offering Tarasenko. So the fact that they didn't offer, or that's what they went with their offer, is really odd. Obviously they are a cap team now, and a team that pushes to the salary cap as opposed to years past where they just have ample amounts of room of salary cap. So the fact that they couldn't necessarily offer a super large contract isn't surprising, but it's also like one of those where, like, all right, you have a chance to get this guy, make a move or two to clear up some salary,
Well, I think that's ultimately what it probably came down to. Obviously it was, it's been reported by at least one person that the Hurricanes had a press release ready to go before the whole agent firing debacle thing, that they thought they were going to have Tarasenko. The report from Andy Strickland covers the Blues, so obviously probably, tapped into the Tarasenko camp. Tarasenko spent most of his career with the Blues before going to the Rangers last year. Said he originally had a 4-year offer at $5.5 million from Ottawa, 1 year for the Canes at less than $4 million. Like Jared just said, given their cap constraints, like right now, currently they have less than $1 million in cap space. I'll get to that in a second. 1 year at $6 million from Ottawa, 4 years from Ottawa at $5.5. Or excuse me, sorry, the 1 year $6 million was from San Jose. Obviously, San Jose, not a big destination right now. Your best hope if you go there is you score a bunch of goals and get flipped to a contender at the deadline. Ottawa's a team that's probably at least on the playoff bubble this year, especially with some of the teams in the Atlantic Division maybe taking another step back, teams like the Bruins and Lightning. So a decent destination for him. It just feels like he kind of misjudged the market with the flat cap, missed out on some of these other opportunities. Given his age and some of the injuries he had last year, a little bit of a down year, Ottawa should probably be glad he didn't accept a 4-year offer because
Mm-hmm.
that could have gone poorly for them. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, he ends up with 1 year, $5 million in Ottawa. It's a decent deal, a good deal. What we mainly heard was, the Hurricanes and Senators were the two big teams that were interested in him. I think if he was going to come to the Hurricanes, Vladimir Tarasenko, yeah, he's worth at least $4 million, if not more. I wouldn't have expected him to take an offer of 3-something million unless he just really wanted to come here and chase a cup. But again, he has a cup. He won the cup with St.
Yep.
Louis in 2019. It hasn't been that long. I think with him, it was going to be a matter of if he was going to sign with the Hurricanes, he was going to have to wait for them to find a way to clear cap space, with that Brett Pesce trade, with a Teuvo Teravainen trade, or even a Brady Shea trade, that would have opened up plenty of cap space for them to offer him, $5 million, even, maybe if like the Hurricanes offer 4.5 and Ottawa offers 5, he goes to the Hurricanes. But
Yeah.
Maybe he just said, I'm tired of waiting. I don't want to wait on this anymore. I just want to be locked in, know where I'm going to play, start getting settled, take what's probably the best monetary offer I'm going to get at this point in the offseason. Or maybe the Hurricanes said, there's no way at any point that we're going $5 million. So you might as well just go to Ottawa. We know the Hurricanes like to draw a hard line in the sand of what they're willing to offer people. They did pay quite a bit for Michael Bunting or Dmitry Orlov. Sorry. Yeah. But obviously that was to keep the term down. So you thought maybe they pay more for Tarasenko on a 1-year deal. But again, salary cap is a thing. He would have had to wait for the Hurricanes to clear some cap space if he wanted more than what they were offering him, especially now once they brought in Tony DeAngelo and Brendan Lemieux and shrank that cap space down even further. So that is where things ultimately, I think, probably ended up with him. Just got tired of waiting.
Yeah.
Ended up taking what was going to be his best offer from Ottawa, and that's fine. He wanted to get paid. He got paid. He's not going to some terrible team. The Senators are certainly a much, 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 much less safe bet to make the playoffs than the Hurricanes, but they certainly could. And I think Tarasenko's, still a guy who, adding him, especially with losing Alex DeBrincat, significantly enhances their chances of making it to the playoffs. We'll do an episode probably at some point in August looking at the whole Eastern Conference landscape. But yeah, I mean, it's easy to understand from Tarasenko's perspective the way things went, why he ended up taking this deal.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think it was them. He was just tired of waiting around. He very well could have still had interest in the Hurricanes, but again, like you were saying, they'd have to clear up cap space, and they haven't done that. They've just been shrinking their cap space down by signing, like you said, Brendan Lemieux, Tony DeAngelo, by signing these guys. So I think, yeah, he just got tired of waiting. I think that it was pretty telling that it may not happen whenever the whole agent firing thing went down, that it was going to be like, okay, maybe this isn't as much of a lock as we thought it was going to be. And we had discussed that when it happened as well, that we felt like, okay, yeah, we may want to pump the brakes on this and not go ahead and start ordering our Tarasenko jerseys, So, I'm not surprised at all. And like you said, he already has his ring. It's not like he's, chasing a ring, at this point. He has one already. A guy, like Brent Burns, towards the end of his career wanting to finally get that ring. They're not in the same boat there. So, he didn't necessarily have to go to a contender, but like you said, with Ottawa, they're a team that they're promising. They got some good young players there. They can make that push for the playoffs. Then you bring in a veteran like Tarasenko that could help elevate some of those young guys there to that next level for them. We saw how that went with the Hurricanes, mixing those veterans with the young guys. So who's to say that won't happen with Ottawa as well, of getting those young guys to the next level? But yeah, good for him. Getting paid. Can go ahead and start finding him a new place there in the Ottawa area. Get settled in, get ready to go for training camp and all that stuff, and the season coming up ahead.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's a time to officially, well, not officially, because we're still going to talk about some different things it means for the Hurricanes, but officially close the book on the Hurricanes Tarasenko saga, at least for this year. He's a free agent. He's on a 1-year deal. Who knows? Maybe if Ottawa's out of the race, the Hurricanes will go get him at the deadline, or they'll go get him in free agency next year. But for at least now, we know, barring something truly, truly, truly bizarre, Vladimir Tarasenko will not be a member of the Hurricanes opening night roster. However, Vladimir Tarasenko will be on the ice at PNC Arena on opening night, because who do the Hurricanes play on opening night? The Ottawa Senators. So,
yes, they do.
Anybody hoping to see Vladimir Tarasenko at PNC on opening night, technically, you won't be disappointed.
Yeah, you just may be disappointed in the jersey that he is wearing. But now, like you said, it's time to close the chapter or close the book on that saga between Tarasenko and the Hurricanes. So where do they go now? The Hurricanes, that is. We know where Tarasenko is going. He is going to Ottawa. But where do they go now? We will be talking about that right after this quick break, folks. Now, folks, it is important to take care of yourself. We stress that every day we are on this show. And one great way you can do that is with our next partner, AG1, the daily foundational nutritional supplement that supports whole body health. Because like we always stress when we talk on this show is you got to take care of yourself, and AG1 can help you do that. AG1, again, is a foundational nutritional supplement that delivers comprehensive nutrients to support whole body health. AG1 replaces your multivitamin, probiotic, and more in one simple drinkable habit. You can get rid of all that stuff in your medicine cabinet, and AG1 will have you covered with science-driven formulation of vitamins, probiotics, and whole food sourced nutrients. AG1 is raising the standard for quality in the supplement category. AG1 helps you build your foundation, or build your health foundation first, because if you don't have a strong foundation, you're not going to have a strong body, folks. We talk about that all the time. The Hurricanes, they have a strong foundation. That's why the health of their team is so good. That's why they're so successful. So you can be like the Hurricanes if you drink AG1, because you will have that strong foundation. So right now, folks, if a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/NHL network. That's drinkag1.com/NHL network. Go check it out, folks, and build that strong foundation for this upcoming hockey season. Now, getting back into the Hurricanes, and where do they go from now? Honestly, I think they just keep going on the path they're going. I don't think there's, really anything crazy going on now, because like we said earlier, I feel that when the whole agent firing stuff happened, that kind of signaled like, all right, this may not happen. So let's, just go on this road right here, as we've been talking about throughout the offseason. If they land them, they land them. Great. If not, they have a good team right now as is. We said it, with a lot of trades and signing episodes, is like, they have a good team right now. They don't necessarily need to go out and acquire this guy, trade for that guy, sign this guy. They don't need to do that. So I think they just keep doing what they're doing. If they still want to go after Erik Karlsson, go after him, see if you can land him. But again, they have a good team now. they didn't necessarily need to bring in Tarasenko. It'd be nice and it'd be, pretty darn helpful for them. But it wasn't like, okay, like, this is, someone, that can, like Ottawa, potentially get us into the playoffs. The Hurricanes were already a playoff team. They're already a team that had the pieces in place to contend for a Stanley Cup. So, they didn't necessarily need to bring him in. Would have been nice, but I think they just keep going down the road they're going now.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, like I said, I think if you're the Hurricanes, you'd still like to add that goal scorer that you've been missing the last few years in the playoffs. Tarasenko could have been that guy. You don't get him. I think what it does is it puts even less urgency on when the Hurricanes need to make some of the moves that we're talking about, like trading Brett Pesce or trading Teuvo Teravainen, because the only real urgency that there might have been was you do that so that you can free up cap space and then turn around and sign Tarasenko. Now, if you're doing that, there's not really another free agent, I think, that moves the needle a ton left. So if you're going to go try to make an ad, it's going to be via trade. That's not something there needs to be any rush on. That's honestly the sort of thing we could even see happen in September. We circle back to, like I talked about a couple episodes ago. Remember when Justin Falk's contract was, going into its last year and everybody thought he was going to be traded. He didn't get traded until September. Maybe that happens with Brett Pesce and the Hurricanes then turn around and trade for a forward in September, right before training camp, early in training camp. That's certainly possible. I think ultimately the biggest thing this means, like I said, for the Hurricanes, Tarasenko going off the market removes a lot of urgency in making some of these moves quickly. You can really take your time and get the right deal. Not that Don Waddell was ever going to rush, a deal and take a lesser deal than he thought he could get just so he could make sure he could sign Tarasenko. Because look, Tarasenko is a good player. He's not a guy at this point in his career, especially, that you move heaven and earth to get on your team, especially if you are a team like the Hurricanes, like you just said, who have a really good team, who are coming off a run. I mean, look, at the end of the day, right now, you've got last year's team that went to the Eastern Conference Final, that did what they did in the playoffs, and you're adding Dmitry Orlov, Michael Bunting, and Andrei Svechnikov to that group. So that's, as I said, that's a really good group in and of itself. I still don't think they're done. I still am fairly confident that Brett Pesce is going to be traded at some point, that they may turn around and use the cap space they would generate from that to make another addition at forward. But yeah, as this roster stands right now, it's fine. And it kind of has to be, because if they aren't going to trade anybody else away, the Hurricanes currently have $845,583 in cap space. So if they don't make another trade, trade anybody out, they are done by, I don't want to say force, but really they're, they can't add anybody who costs even $900,000 to their roster right now without making another move out. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. If the Hurricanes are going to make any other kind of addition, they're going to need to clear cap space. Again, I think that's going to happen in the form of at least a Brett Pesce trade, maybe Teuvo Teravainen as well. But yeah, I mean, at this point, I do definitely think there's still guys the Hurricanes could realistically go after to make their team better, but I just am not sure that we're going to see these trades happen. I don't want to say anytime soon, because I mean, they could make them right now while we're doing this episode, but it also wouldn't be surprising to me if we don't see these moves come until, later into August or even into September.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, again, this team is fine now, but I don't think they're done either, like I said. So you got to figure there's other potential targets out there, whether it be on the free agent market, whether it be through a trade. We will talk about those other potential targets for the Hurricanes right after this quick break, folks. All right, folks, we are back, and now it's time to talk about other potential targets for the Hurricanes. Now, Tarasenko, he was the biggest name kind of left on the free agent market. So he's obviously off the table now. So I think that, the biggest target out there still is Erik Karlsson for the Hurricanes. I think he's still the biggest target. I think, he was honestly probably the biggest target of the off season, really. And whether or not that deal happens, we'll just have to wait and see. I'm not pushing all of my chips into the Erik Karlsson bucket or anything like that. So because at this point where the Hurricanes are at salary cap wise, like you said, just a little over $800,000, they're just gonna be so cap strapped. I just don't know if they'd want to do that, And because like we keep saying, they have a good team as is right now on July 29th, 2023 at 3:30 in the afternoon. They have a good team right now. They don't need to make another move, whether it be for Karlsson, like we said with Tarasenko again. It's not one that's gonna push them into the playoffs again. They're already a playoff team. They're already a team that can make deep runs in the playoffs and make pushes for a Stanley Cup. And like you said, now you're gonna have Svetch back. You've added Orlov. You've added Bunting. They've added some good pieces already that can get them over that hump. So ultimately, it's going to be a lot of more depth signings, kind of like with D'Angelo and Lemieux. I think that's going to be most of what you have left now. Regardless of anything they do, they are going to have to move money out because, like you said, a little over 800,000 left. So, kind of, I guess, arguably the biggest name left is Patrick Kane at this point. Obvious, there has been nothing about whether or not they're interested in him in free agency. I remember at the trade deadline, there was a little bit of chatter about him coming to the Hurricanes. Obviously, ended up going to the New York Rangers instead. He's kind of like the, I guess, biggest name left. Do I see that happening? No, I don't. I think they're pretty good in their forward group, now. And if it was 10 years ago, then I'd be like, yeah, when he was in his prime, but it's not that now. And, he wouldn't, have a very big role on this team. There's guys that are better in their career at this point in the position he was in Chicago. So it's just not going to happen,
Yeah, I agree. No, I don't see Patrick Kane happening. Honestly, that wasn't even a name I'd considered. I'd forgotten he was still out there. I think the thing to remember with him too is he went through I think he had hip surgery, and I think the thought is he's not going to be ready even for the start of the regular season.
Yeah.
And may not. One thing I read was he may not even sign until after the regular season starts and he's ready. So I can't see the Hurricanes going that route. I can't see them taking on that kind of uncertainty at this point in his career. I really, really don't see Erik Karlsson happening at this point. Like you said, that's with making that cap work, especially, it's just too complicated of a trade to pull off. I think with the salary retention needed, what San Jose might want. And also, I mean, there would be some risk involved. I mean, Erik Karlsson is 33, signed for 4 more years at, probably the lowest the Hurricanes would get that cap hit lowered to at best would be like 6 or 7 million. So, I mean, still some risk there. I think they brought in Tony DeAngelo to fill that second power play quarterback role. So I think that makes the bringing in Erik Karlsson less likely.
Yeah.
If they move out money in the form of Pesce and or Shea and or Teravainen, I think the move that you would see would come at forward. The only real free agent of note left that I would consider is actually Tomas Tatar.
I was fixing to ask about him.
Solid middle six winger, had 20 goals last season for the Devils, has had several 20-goal seasons in his career. If you're looking for a cheap option, even after you move some money out, he'd be fine. I mean, I don't think he moves the needle that much, but he adds a little bit more goal scoring and, a little bit more depth to your lineup. The two that I think are guys that I could see the Hurricanes going after is, again, Elias Lindholm. If the Flames are going to trade him and they're going to bring him back, the only thing about him is that he's got a year left on his contract. So if the Hurricanes wanted that to be more than a rental, they'd have to ask themselves if they're willing to shell out, probably $7-8 million for him. You'd have two centers on high price deals. You could do that. I mean, teams have certainly done that. You'd have to be able to cut some corners elsewhere, which maybe they can, like say with Pyotr Kochetkov on his cheap deal, if he takes over the number one goalie role in the near future. Maybe you can play hardball again with Seth Jarvis and Martin Necas with them being RFAs and get them on team-friendly deals. But, that'd be a consideration with that one. Another guy that I keep going back to, we talked about as a potential target all the way back before the draft, is Victor Arvidsson with the Kings. He's got 1 year left at like $4.25 million. So say you moved Pesce out, you could turn right around and add an Arvidsson with the cap space that you freed up. The Kings are actually in a worse cap situation than the Hurricanes with the addition of Pierre-Luc Dubois. They have $123,333 in cap space. So if they want to open up some space and have a little more flexibility going into the year, maybe Arvidsson is a guy they're willing to move, again, especially with the fact that they just added a really good top six forward in Dubois. So trade target wise, and again, if the Hurricanes are going to make another big move, it's going to be via trade because, again, they're not going to sign Patrick Kane. And I wouldn't really classify bringing in Tatar as a big move. It'd be a good move, be a decent move. I think they can do better if they're willing to, be creative on the trade market. But the two names I keep coming back to are, again, Lindholm and Arvidsson. Maybe Travis Konechny if the Flyers are willing to move him to further their rebuild. But he's a good player on a reasonable deal, got some term. I know John Tortorella really likes him, and then you have to question if the Flyers would be willing to move a really good player like that to a divisional opponent. And maybe it's somebody who we have never thought of or considered. I mean, like I said, before the opening day of free agency last year, I never would have considered Max Pacioretty as a trade target for the Hurricanes. At the deadline in 2020, I never would have considered Vincent Trocheck as a trade target for the Hurricanes. So they've pulled big additions out of left field before. Obviously, if they're going to do that this time, we'll hope it works out a little bit better than Pacioretty did. But if they are going to make a big move, like I said, it could be somebody that is not on our radar and has never been on our radar.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the first time that something like that has happened, for sure. So, we're always going to be talking about this kind of stuff here on the show. If a name comes up, we're just happy going out of business and see the Hurricanes potentially linked to this guy or that guy, whether it be via trade or free agent sign. We will, of course, talk about it here on the show. So make sure you are following the show along on Twitter at LO_Hurricanes and myself on Twitter at JaredEllis_96 and Andrew over on Twitter at ASchnitt53. Obviously at 53 there is from Jeff Skinner. Maybe the Hurricanes trade and bring Jeff Skinner back.
Nope, not gonna happen.
Yeah, that is not gonna happen by any means. That is a trade that we don't want to see.
Maybe at 50% salary retention. I'm not sure why Buffalo would do that, but nope,
still too much.
That's one. We talk about out of left field trades. That would certainly be out of left field, and it's sometimes hard to predict Dom Waddell's movements. I'm pretty comfortable predicting that won't be one of them.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident in that one. Like I said, I don't want to push all of my go all in on Erik Karlsson. Don't want to do that, but I'd be willing to go all in on the Hurricanes not trading back for Jeff Skinner. That one I'd be willing to go all in on. But again, make sure you're following along on the socials, guys, and we will talk to you guys in the next episode. So enjoy your Saturday, folks, and as always, let's go Canes.